live from sunny San Diego. This episode is about the SDK for a storage layer for smart contracts. So before I dive into that, let me explain again what problem we have right now with smart contracts, right? And let me dive back into the history of blockchain. Blockchain 1.0 was only currency. It was, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, all of these, right? And that was a big, big innovation because it gave us a tamper-proof ledger, right? And it gave us, a censorship resistance and decentralization and all these things. And don't be fooled just by the word decentralization. It doesn't mean you have the other things being tamper-proof, being censorship resistant, and all these type of things, right? That's important. And Bitcoin gave that to us, and other currency blockchains, right? That's blockchain 1.0, crypto 1.0, currency. Then came smart contracts. Smart contracts means the blockchain became programmable and we can write code on the blockchain. That's a great, great innovation, but it's already been out there like 7 years or so. And we've been building a lot of apps on top of the blockchain. So it has been a big, big success with everything, especially on the Ethereum blockchain, but also on others. We have decentralized finance, we have Web3 apps, and Web3 apps are being built as we speak. So that is a big, big innovation. So now what we are building here at Bitoku is a storage layer for smart contracts. And we start with Solana simply because it's the most scalable smart contract chain. And we want our chain to be scalable as well, because that's the only way we can get mass adoption, right? And we aim to be the storage layer for smart contracts with mass adoption. And that's why we feel we build it first on Solana, which we're, still a big fan of. We just don't get fooled by all the market ups and downs that are happening. Because, it's just about the technology and we are building that storage layer. So that storage layer means the programmer, people that build apps, decentralized apps on the Solana blockchain, they will have an SDK, a software development kit. And we're diving a little bit more into the details of that right now. So, I want to show you the actual picture here, and that takes a moment. Okay, here we go. So here is the diagram, and on the left-hand side, you can see the user's Solana program. So our SDK is taking shape. We're working on it really soon. You will get you will see some GitHub repositories, some GitHub repos out there with, the early versions of the code that we're building. And in the top left here, you see the user's Solana program. And what you see in the code section there is they can just say use Bitoku SDK. And that means we will have a so-called crate, right? A crate is like a package in Rust speak. So we're using the Rust programming language here. And when they say use Bitoku SDK, they can use our software development kit. And then a user can just have, a user for our blockchain is a developer that creates a Solana D app, a Web3 app that has a storage layer, right? So each and every other server, can just read and write to files, but we cannot do it on the blockchain these days. But with our Solana SDK, we're doing that. And the user can write just a function called makefile, and they will just call the Bitoku SDK : that's Rust's a notation to call a function within a package within a crate, right? So our crate is called Bitoku SDK, : and then create file. And then you can put the file name here and stuff like that. What then happens is within the user Solana program, there will reside the Bitoku SDK because they use it, right? So that means it will be pulled into the user Solana program that they write. And we have all these functions here: create file, delete file, write to file, read from file, right? And what will then happen is here a CPI, it's called the cross-program invocation. So we will, from the user's program, we will call our program, which is called the Bitoku SDK agent. So with the CPI call, we call our agent, and then on the agent side, you see some more things going on. So that was a little bit of the diagram. I'll get back into the diagram in a moment. So the way it works is like our users are, builders. They are developers, startups that build Web3 apps. And Web3 apps are being built. It's an important experiment of society to find out if, distributed apps, dApps built on Web3 technology, if they make us freer, give us more freedom than, the centralized Web2 apps that we have these days. And we all want to make that experiment. And these experiments are being made, and the Web3 apps are being built as we speak. So let's go back to the diagram. And within the Bitoku SDK agent, we have a request handler, right? So whenever and for the user, it's so simple. They just say create file, write to file, read. It's just like, every Unix program or something that we've been writing, in the past, and all the Web2 apps, they handle files, right? And they can write databases to files and index stuff. And just because they can, write to the file at a specific position and read at another position and stuff like that. And for the user here, and that's the goal of Bitoku, we make it super simple for the user on the very left-hand side to write code on the blockchain that has a storage layer, right? And then, with the Bitoku SDK, it will all be encoded into a request. And then we do the CPI, the Solana cross-program invocation, and it goes to another program, which is our SDK agent. And the SDK agent will receive requests from many, many different users, right? Many, many different dApps, Web3 apps that are being built. And it all goes into the request handler. And then the request handler will see, oh, what do I have to do? And it'll write the encoded request into what's called a CPA, a PDA. So PDA is one of those terms, Solana-specific terms that is, if you just hear it, you don't know what it is, but you have to know what it is. But it's actually a relatively simple to understand concept. PDA stands for Program Derived Address. So that is basically a Solana account that is linked to a specific program, right? So you can think about it like, okay, this SDK agent program, that's the one that owns the request PDA that you see on the right-hand side, right? So it's just a Solana account that's owned by the program. So that's what PDA stands for. But that still leaves you with what the heck is a Solana account? A Solana account is just a piece of, well, it actually is storage, but it's not mass storage, right? Those accounts that they can hold data, and the data will persist from one call to the program to another call, right? It's kind of persistent storage, but each and every validator, like 2,000 validators we have for Solana right now, need to keep those accounts, right? And preferably in RAM, right? So now RAM, random access memory, like that's a really scarce and expensive resource, right? So that means you cannot, each and every dApp cannot store even gigabytes of data in these Solana accounts because it would just be prohibitively expensive, right? Let alone terabytes or petabytes or exabytes or whatever that we need to build some real Web3 apps, right? So so we use the Solana account. That's good for kind of small storage, right? And we just write the request there, not the real data. So if we build like a Web3 app, and I always have that one example, like let's build a Web3 version of Airbnb, or what's being built right now with HiveMapper, for example, is a Web3 version of Google Maps, right? And you can easily understand each of those needs lots and lots of terabytes, exabytes, petabytes of data, right? And they cannot go into Solana accounts for cost reasons. So we just write the request to write into a file into our request PDA. And then from outside of Solana, we have an off-chain program, which is called the Bitoku worker, right? And the Bitoku worker is going to do the real storage work, right? So what we're starting with right now is, so you see the worker here in the picture in the bottom, right? So what we're starting with right now is the SDK, the top layer here. That's kind of the end goal, right? That's where we want to be, where it is super easy for a Web3 programmer to have access to a storage layer, right? But then obviously the real work is going to be done down here in the bottom in the Bitoku worker, right? And that is off-chain from the view of Solana, right? So our Bitoku SDK agent is a Solana program. It's on-chain from a Solana point of view. The request PDA is a Solana account that lives on the blockchain. And then that account can be read from outside of Solana, right? So we have that blue little piece in the bottom there, the off-chain program, the Bitoku worker, that will read what's in that request PDA and then handle the request and do the actual storage work. So since we're a friend of, doing one step after the other, just for, proof of concept, we will have the Bitoku worker first as a centralized program, and it'll just write the data to files on that one centralized server. So then we have the proof of concept, and then we already have the SDK, and, programmers, Web3 programmers, startups can already start writing Bitoku programs, and they will already work. They will just do the storage in a very first step as kind of a minimum viable product. We'll do it on a centralized server. And then we're building in a second step the actual Bitoku blockchain, because that's what we want to have. The storage layer needs to have storage with blockchain guarantees, right? And that means it's not only of course, it has to be decentralized storage, right? So in the MVP, minimum viable product, it's only centralized storage, but it will be decentralized. But it's not enough to be decentralized. It wouldn't make sense to build, to rebuild Web2 apps as Web3 apps if the storage doesn't have the blockchain guarantees. And when I say blockchain guarantees, I mean decentralization, I mean censorship resistance, I mean that it's tamper-proof, and, all of these things, all of the above, right? Those are the blockchain guarantees. And with the Bitoku blockchain, we will have storage with these blockchain guarantees, but not with the cost of blockchain, because not every validator, not every Bitoku validator needs to store that data, right? We will have Bitoku validators that validate the storage transactions, but the actual work of the storage will be done by storage provider nodes. We will have millions of storage provider nodes all over the world, right? And, not every DApp will store all its data on all the millions of storage provider nodes, right? Depending on what degree of redundancy we want. It could be 7 or it could be 17 or, something like that. We don't need more redundancy. We don't need the data to be stored on thousands or hundreds of thousands of nodes, right? We just need, some peace of mind to have a certain level of redundancy. And the Bitoku blockchain will add that, right? It's adding the Bitoku validators. They communicate to the storage provider nodes and validate that the provider nodes are doing what they're supposed to do. That means, storing our data and being able to retrieve it anytime. And then the Bitoku blockchain is talking to the Solana blockchain, with this methodology here, which you can also call an oracle, right? Oracle in blockchain speak just means a bridge between one blockchain and the outside world, right? So from, if you look at it from a Solana perspective, that would mean we are bridging the Solana blockchain with the outside world, which is in our case, the Bitoku blockchain. And, by that, adding that storage layer to the Solana blockchain. And, I'm super excited to be working on this simply because I feel, Web3, decentralized finance, all these things, they are the future. Just because we as humanity need to make these experiments, if we can build, IT systems of the world, if we can build a new web that gives just more autonomy to each of the users, right? Rather than, having to play by the rules of a few large companies that, control everything, right? And that's the next step for humanity. And I think nobody knows if it can be better or how it can be better, or, is it just a fantasy or just a pipe dream or something like that, right? I don't think it's just a pipe dream. I feel it will be better, but I could be wrong, of course, right? But there's one thing I will not be wrong, that we will be doing this experiment as humanity, right? Because we just have to, right? We just have to find out, can we build a better web that makes us all more independent and more autonomous and more independent of centralized institutions such as each and every bank out there, such as Google and Facebook out there, right? And independent of centralized institutions such as FTX, right? Even though it was about crypto and about blockchain, doesn't mean FTX was a decentralized organization. It was not. It was super centralized, right? And it was just that few guys in some compound in the Bahamas that were controlling everything. And we don't want that. So we want Web3, and we need a decentralized, tamper-proof, censorship-resistant storage layer in order to make Web3 a reality. And we definitely need performance, right? If we think of, making things like Twitter or Facebook Web3, then it's going to be tough with frankly, any of the existing smart contract chains, right? I feel it will be possible with Solana in a few years' time. Solana is building the new Fire Dancer, a validator software that promises to be able to do millions of transactions a second, right? So we will probably be there performance-wise to be able to build a Web3 version of Twitter. But we also need that decentralized storage layer that also has all these performance guarantees, right? So again, and that's why we're building that on Solana first. We're not dependent on Solana in any way, right? We can connect it with any other smart contract blockchain, and we will, right? We want to do EVM and connect to Ethereum and Avalanche and, many other smart contract chains, right? We just feel Solana gives us the greatest opportunity to fulfill our promise and our mission and to solve that problem that humanity has right now, to add that storage layer to blockchain, right? Because otherwise we cannot do that big Web3 experiment, and nobody's going to stop humanity from doing that Web3 experiment. It's just not, it's unstoppable. So that's why I'm super excited working on that. If you liked my video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and